Hi everyone, Horace Junior here with another episode of Hoops to Homes. We have Chicago legend and NBA champion Antoine Walker. What are the differences of growing up in the city back in the day compared to now?
I think the difference is now, growing up in the city back then, it still happens when you think about the violence, the gangs. But I think back then, you had the older people that really made sure, especially if you was a guy that was in the newspapers or trying to do something positive. I can always remember growing up, even though I grew up around gangs, I didn't have to be involved in that. People was like, oh, he's playing basketball, he's playing sports. So I always had those outlets. I think even now, being at high school, the AAU circuit and the different things we have for kids now, I think it's better because we have more things to put them involved in. Where back then it was a little harder because we didn't have all the programming that they have today. So I think that's where it's a little different. My kids now have more outlets to where when I grew up, they were really kind of tight on what you could do to kind of make yourself better.
What was it like growing up as a highly recruited athlete in the city compared to now?
I think back then it was covered, even though we live in the area of social media, I think it was covered as really better, like you was a professional. I mean, I remember getting ranked in 8th grade. How do you rank an 8th grader? And I would just remember how much the local papers, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Tribune, would cover this. And then you got the big national news websites that's also starting to pick up. So I didn't play in the era where there was a lot of internet, but to have the local papers where people would still read newspapers, it was covered at such a high level that it made you feel like you was a pro. Because it was actually sections in the paper that you would actually look up and be like, wow, they're talking about just high school sports. It wasn't just basketball, it was for baseball, football, and all those things. So that's what made it really special back then.
What was the best high school player you played against?
I played against a lot of great players, and this is going to probably surprise you, but played against who I thought was unbelievable was Michael Herman.
Oh, wow.
And then obviously in the Catholic League, and Michael played a little bit in the Catholic League, but I have to give credit to a guy who played at the University of Illinois and went to St. Martin de Porres. He actually beat me out for Player of the Year, was Jerry G. Not a big name guy, not a guy that made it to the next level, but he did go to the University of Illinois, but we had some epic battles.
Okay, how do you interact with the fans now?
This is a sports town, so people remember you. They remember what you've accomplished through high school, whether it's high school, college, or pro. So it's been unbelievable, and that's why I've continued to live it.
So how did you handle the pressure of being the one to make it out of your friends and family?
I really didn't handle it well, but you got to live and learn. I think one thing that was good is that family was good. Mom, raising 6 of us by herself, being a single parent mom, saw her strength. But my grandmother really instilled in me discipline and keeping family first and trying to make some of the right decisions and not getting caught up in some of the negative things that we can get caught up in as a young kid. So I give my mother and grandmother all the credit for that.
So what are the Boston fans like compared to the Chicago fans?
The Boston fans are a little different. I had my run-ins. I remember my rookie year, and we only went in 15 games, and the fans being really brutal on us. But if you play hard and if you put the effort that's needed, and obviously if you win, they could be the greatest fan base in the world. Now, I would say one thing that's different about Chicago fans and growing out here in Chicago accepts losing a lot better.
Oh, wow.
Than Boston fans. So it makes it a little bit more pleasant place to play, but I wouldn't trade in playing for a passionate fan base like the Boston Celtics.
What's your favorite thing about Chicago?
I would probably have to say the traveling the world would probably be our food. I think we have a variety of dishes and cuisines. You can't really stick us to one thing, even though people always say pizza and hot dogs and those type of things. But we got everything. Sushi, good steak places, you name it. We got a great fast food restaurant. So I would say the food.
So going off that, what's your favorite restaurant in the city?
I'm old school, man. My favorite restaurant, they took it away from me in the city, was Ruth Chris. There's still one out in the suburbs of Chicago, but that was my favorite.
Okay. Favorite time of the year?
The summertime. I mean, we have so many different things that you can do here in the summer, and then you put the lake effect into it, being able to go to the lakefront and the beaches adds on to it. I think there's no better place in the world in the summertime for about 3.5 months than Chicago.
Okay, so what are your top things to do in the summer?
One, golfing. I think we got an amazing golf courses, public and private. That's the first thing that I'm doing. And then also, I'm not a big swimmer, but I just think that, like I mentioned before, the lakefront aspect of it, being able to go out there, they've done such a beautiful job of fixing up, putting restaurants and those things, and also add entertainment as well on the lakefront. So I like to go to the different beaches, whether it's the North Beach or whether it's even on the South Side, if it's the South Beach as well, because you got so many things to do now.
So we're avid golfers here. What's your top 3 courses in Chicago?
Well, I'm gonna say one is not probably now. It was a private one. This is my first club I joined, so it's near and dear to me. It's Calumet Country Club.
Okay. Okay.
So I always put them as one. I think they're public now. They're no longer a private club. Two would probably be Harborside. Harborside is challenging, got some hills, the wind. And then I'm a traditional, and people gonna laugh at this probably because I'm Jackson Park.
Jackson Park, okay.
We call that the get low course. So that's like our challenging when you got a good group of golfers who can get low, who can shoot on the par or shoot even. So them like my favorite 3 courses.
Okay. What's your favorite neighborhood in the city?
I'm gonna be a little biased, and if you're talking basketball, I'm gonna always stick up for the South Side Hoopers, and so I'm gonna say the South Side.
What's the toughest arena to play in?
I wouldn't say no arena is tough, but I would say the best arena to play in will be Madison Square Garden. There's just something about playing there, being the mecca of basketball, the atmosphere, the one city that's really started it besides LA, having tons of celebrities on the front row. I mean, you just want to have your best game is Madison Square Garden.
What's your favorite purchase you made?
My favorite purchase would probably be my Maybach. That was probably my favorite purchase at the time, to be able to get a Maybach, early 2000s.
Okay. What was your first purchase after getting drafted and getting that first check?
Oh, my first purchase I had to give myself. I got myself a Lexus 450 truck that just came out, but I had to put a slash to that, and also bought my mom a car too. I can't remember the car I bought my mom, but my first check, I got me and her a car.
So you own a few buildings around the city. What advice would you give to a first-time investor?
One, learn the area. Make sure the area has potential based off the price point of what you're buying at, and you'll be able to dictate that based off if you feel like it's a little high. But the potential that you may not see as a buyer is that in 5 years where the development of this neighborhood could be at. And that was the big learning curve for me into indulging into real estate, is understanding what this property can be at 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the line, where you're looking at it right there at that moment, and you may not see the finished product. You don't see the neighborhood looking really nice, and you're like, wow, why is this property so high? Because they're gonna gentrify the area, they're gonna change it up. So that was like the learning curve for me as far as trying to pick property, is knowing where would it be at in 5 years? Is it gonna hold this value? That's what you're gonna have to be really good at.
If you could redo a purchase, what would it be, if any?
Probably buying undeveloped property and kind of like just buying lots. And you know what I mean? I just think that's such a hard process in building stuff from the ground up. You get into other areas that you may not, especially if you just get into real estate that you may not know. I would rather pick a property out and go in there, worst case scenario, gut it out, something that's already done, than to start from the ground up.
Okay. So you and Paul P are playing in today's era of basketball. How many rings are you guys getting?
At least one. I think, competition is tough. Then when we play, I think you kind of knew it was going to be the 3-4 teams you had to go through. I think now, even this year, we couldn't tell you who's going to win. You look at the Denver Nuggets, nobody would ever pick them probably to win the NBA championship. So I just think it's more balanced in the league. So I think we definitely would have got a championship with a chance to get multiple.
One thing you would tell your younger self now?
It would probably be have a good team around me, whether that's obviously you want to have good family support, but have a good team around me, whether I'm investing, doing the different things in life, even just picking a restaurant, having just a good team around me to kind of guide me and make sure that I make some of the better decisions will probably be the things that stick out to me.
Okay, you have a good friend coming into town. What are the top 3 things you guys are doing when he's in town?
Hopefully it's a sporting event going on. I would definitely want to take him to, it doesn't have to be basketball. I would take him to a White Sox game. I would take him to a Cubs game. Probably preferably a Cubs game would be a little bit more enjoyable, but definitely a sporting event. Obviously I would pick maybe 2 or 3 really nice restaurants that I think are my top 3. Good steakhouse, probably a seafood place, and then we got to probably get him a fast food place whether that's a Portillo's, a Giordano's, something that's going to stand out that you can always beat.
Interesting.
And then after a good sporting event, the food, probably just kind of take them on a tour and let them really see how big Chicago is. I think also, I always count the suburbs too. I think that's great. So I think it would just be more or less taking them around and kind of let them see how big Chicago really is, and how beautiful city that can be. And you can live in a suburb and it's really, really nice. I think we have those advantages over some of the bigger cities.
Thank you for joining us. That's all we have today. We'll see you next time.